The TNT subcommittee will come to order. Without objection, all members may have 5 days to submit statements, questions, and extraneous materials for the record, subject to the length limitation in the rules. Recent focus on Iran has centered on Tehran's quest for nuclear weapons, but the Iranians and their proxy Hezbollah also use terrorism to threaten global stability. Hezbollah enjoys the full backing of the Iranian regime. The supreme leader and the Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps direct Hezbollah's global terror campaign. Years ago, Hezbollah was a limited regional threat. Today, it's an international movement conducting terrorist and criminal acts in several parts of the world. Your attention can be directed to the poster on the right here showing some of Hezbollah's activities since 2010. Hezbollah is responsible for plots and activities throughout the world. Attempted assassination of Israeli diplomats in New Delhi in India, February 2012. Potential involvement in the bombing of an Israeli diplomat in Tbilisi, Georgia, February 2012. Storing over 8,000 pounds of explosive material in a warehouse in Thailand uncovered in January of this year. Attempted assassination of Israeli targets in Bangkok in February of this year. Attempted laundering of approximately $70 million from Venezuela to Germany in January 2013. Running training camps and international narcotics smuggling operations in Venezuela, Bolivia, Honduras, Nicaragua, and even Mexico. Suicide bombing of a bus of Israeli tourists in Bulgaria in July 2012. In addition to these attacks, Hezbollah may have had a hand in the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and Quds Force plots, such as the attempted assassination of the Saudi ambassador to the United States in Washington, D.C. in October 2011. The uptick of Hezbollah's activity in recent years is a direct result of Iran. The Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, recently described the Iran-Hezbollah relationship as, quote, a partnership agreement with the Iranians as the senior partner. The Iranian agents running Hezbollah are the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and the Quds Force. General Qasem Soleimani is the leader of the Quds Force. In his role, he serves as the de facto director of Hezbollah. Now Major General, which is the highest ranked in the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, he has been the mastermind behind key Iranian foreign policy moves. He helped Iran grow its influence in Iraq and continues to support the murderous Assad regime in Syria. American and British intelligence officials draw comparisons between the real-life Iranian general and the fictional Soviet spy master Karlov, John DeClare's Cold War novels. Only Soleimani is real, and his war with the United States is real. Hezbollah is using social media to spread its propaganda and get new terrorist recruits. As of August, Hezbollah had tweeted an average of 250 tweets a day and had 18,000 plus followers. Clearly, Hezbollah understands the value of Twitter when it comes to spreading its propaganda. Too bad Twitter and our own government don't recognize it too and prohibit the advertising of Hezbollah terrorism. Hezbollah is also getting information via apps on smartphones. BlackBerry and iPhone users who download an app called WhatsApp can get daily updates from Hezbollah. WhatsApp is one of the top overall paid apps, and the company is based in Dallas. The IRGC, Quds Force, and Hezbollah don't have to go it alone. They maintain lots of friends and allies in the world. The Venezuelans, under the Chavez regime, serves as one of the Iranians' closest allies. Hezbollah has used Venezuelan banking sector to launder hundreds of millions of dollars a year and smuggle narcotics to the United States and even European markets. Hezbollah has also conducted terror training in the Margarita Island for recruits from Venezuela and other Latin American countries. Hezbollah operatives and their co-conspirators hold senior positions in the Venezuelan government. They provide travel documents, weapons, logistics support to terrorist operations and cocaine smugglers, as our witnesses will explain further. In Afghanistan, the Iranians provide arms and training to Taliban fighters to kill United States and Afghan forces. In Africa, Iran and Hezbollah are expanding their terrorist and criminal networks in places like Senegal and Gambia. In Asia, let it be China or North Korea or smaller countries like Malaysia, the Iranian Hezbollah conspirators are outpacing our ability to constrain them. So far, U.S. efforts to combat the expanding threat have fallen short. Sanctions are necessary, but they're not enough to counter the expanding activities as Hezbollah and the IRGC. Despite several international pressures, the EU has flat out refused to declare Hezbollah a terrorist group. This is too bad. This would pave the way for additional sanctions. If Western leaders continue to allow these actors to engage in a global campaign of terror without some repercussion, a dangerous precedent will be set. Hezbollah is not going away. It's even more troubling to imagine what the Iranians might be empowered to do if they're allowed to develop nuclear weapons. The United States and its allies must understand this threat, develop a comprehensive strategy on their own to confront these activities of Hezbollah and Iran. The gentleman yields back. Without objection, all the witnesses' prepared statements will be made part of the record. I ask that each witness keep your presentation to no more than 5 minutes. I will now introduce the three witnesses that we have before they give their testimony. Mr. Will Fulton is an Iran analyst with the Critical Threats Project at the American Enterprise Institute. His research focuses on the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, Quds Force, and Iran's Global Force Protection Network. Dr. Matthew Levitt is the director of the Stein Program on Counterterrorism and Intelligence at the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. He previously served as a Deputy Assistant Secretary for Intelligence and Analyst at the Department of the Treasury and as the State Department's Counterterrorism Advisor to the Special Envoy for Middle East Regional Security. He is also the author of forthcoming book, Hezbollah, The Global Footprint of Lebanon's Party of God. Ambassador Roger Noriega is the founder and managing director of Vision Americas, which advises the United States and foreign clients on international business issues. He's also a visiting fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. Prior to these roles, he was the United States ambassador to the Organization of American States and Assistant Secretary for Western Hemisphere Affairs. Mr. Fulton, we will start with you. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, and members of the committee for the opportunity to testify today alongside my esteemed colleagues. The Islamic Republic of Iran is first and foremost concerned with regime preservation. So when we talk about Iran's global terror campaign and Iran's relationship with Lebanese Hezbollah, we must think about it in that context. Iran has established a substantial global force projection network that includes the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, or IRGC, and the Quds Force, Hezbollah, and proxies in Iraq and Gaza. And although these groups may justify their activities in religious and ideological terms, at the end of the day, they are a power projection, deterrent, and retaliatory force. The regime's vulnerability and relative military weakness demand an aggressive and far-reaching asymmetric capability. As a result, Iran's leaders have crafted a national security policy designed to protect the regime from external threats by demonstrating a capability to strike U.S. and Israeli interests anywhere in the world. And this strategy dates back to the regime's earliest years. Ultimately, Mr. Chairman, the IRGC is responsible for Iran's global force projection. The IRGC's mission is regime preservation and is responsible for every related internal and external security task required to accomplish this mission. The IRGC is a highly structured organization led by a small core network of individuals. This group fought side by side during the Iran-Iraq War, where they developed professional military experience as well as enduring personal relationships. They are battle-tested commanders who played key roles early on, leading to increasingly important roles later, including within the Quds Force. The commander of the IRGC, Major General Mohammad Ali Jafari, reports to Iran's supreme leader. Each of the IRGC's 5 combat service commanders report directly to Jafari, except one. Quds Force Commander, Major General Qasem Soleimani, also reports directly to the Supreme Leader. Soleimani has the trust and confidence of the Supreme Leader and has had it for over 15 years. Any Quds Force activity has tacit, if not explicit, approval of the Supreme Leader. I think that this is one of the most important points to understand when we think about the complicity of Iran's top leadership in the global activities of the Quds Force, its partners, and proxies. The notion that Quds Force operations are undertaken by rogue elements is implausible and not supported by any available information. Iran has provided continuous, substantial support to Hezbollah since the 1980s, and their partnership has materialized in the form of multiple terrorist attacks around the globe, targeted assassinations, and military operations in wartime environments. During the Iraq War, the Quds Force worked closely with Hezbollah to train, fund, and arm Iraqi Shia militant groups, and plan and execute attacks against U.S. and coalition forces. I'd like to pick out just a couple of examples where Quds Force commanders involved in Iraq have resurfaced recently. In 2007, senior Quds Force commander Abdul Reza Shahlai, along with a senior Hezbollah commander, planned the infamous attack in Karbala, Iraq that resulted in the deaths of 5 U.S. soldiers. Shahlai later went on to help plan and facilitate the failed 2011 plot to assassinate the Saudi ambassador to the U.S. here in Washington, D.C. The Quds Force's number 3 in command was also active in Iraq. Mohsen Chizari, the head of Quds Force operations and training, was arrested in Baghdad in 2006 by U.S. forces, but was quickly released at the insistence of Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki, who cited diplomatic immunity. Now, Chizari is considered one of the key members of the Quds Force's training and advising mission fighting to keep Bashar al-Assad in power in Syria. Syria is enormously important to Iran. It has long been Iran's closest state ally. It has provided Iran access to its proxies and partners. Iran has invested in Syria as a strategic ally as part of its deterrence against Israel. Iran's primary goal, then, has been to preserve Assad for as long as possible. But Iran is also working aggressively to establish a militant network that will enable them to retain a certain level of capability in post-Assad Syria. As you might expect, the Quds Force has been leading Iran's efforts in Syria. Just last month, a brigadier general in the Quds Force with substantial ties to Hezbollah by the name of Hassan Shatari was killed near Damascus after having been in Aleppo. We don't know exactly what Shatari was doing in Syria, but we suspect that he was on a mission related to the Asafir chemical weapons and missile storage facility near Aleppo. Shatari was important enough that Qasem Soleimani personally delivered the news of his death to Shatari's family and wept openly at his funeral. Senior Hezbollah officials also traveled to Iran to attend Shatari's funeral. Hezbollah has been integral to Iran's efforts in Syria, which has collaborated with the Quds Force in several areas, including training, advising, and arming pro-Assad forces. Iran, along with Hezbollah, may achieve some success with its strategy in Syria, but Iran's efforts offer only a temporary solution to Tehran. A rump Alawite state or a militant network cannot provide Iran with the same level of deterrence or political and economic support as Assad Syria. This is why I think the fall of Assad has serious implications for Iran's global force projection strategy, and I'll conclude on this point. As the conflict in Syria stretches on and Iran sees its strategic depth continually eroded, they're likely to seek to expand their operational territory. The interception in January of an Iranian weapons shipment containing sophisticated Chinese-made anti-aircraft missiles and large quantities of light arms, ammunition, and explosive material destined for al-Houthi rebels in Yemen suggests that Iran has already ramped up its support for militants in at least one area. We should look for similar behavior in other areas where Iran has a presence. And finally, if you're wondering what a more active Iranian global force projection network might look like, consider the past 2 years, where we've seen a plot to conduct a mass casualty attack here in Washington, and plots in Georgia, India, Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Kenya, and Nigeria. We've seen Iran become more risk-prone in its behavior, and we are likely to see this trend continue. Thank you.